Well, bracing here in Washington, D.C., so I thought I might as well do this production today with my bomber hat on, so all of you know that I'm ready for action. We're going to get a couple of feet of snow. All right, here we go. We're going to get bombed. We've already asked the hotel where we're staying if they got enough food and booze, because this is what it's going to be like. I'll tell you what else is going to happen. About 9.5 months from now, there's going to be a record number of births at the local hospitals here in Washington, D.C. That's something they're not talking about on the news, but I've seen it in the North Country time and time again. It's almost like setting your watch on when these births are going to take place. It happens every time we get a blizzard up north in good old Fargo. All right, good to have you with us on this Friday edition of Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Yeah, we got a snowstorm coming. I'm looking at my iPhone here and my aviation app that I have. It's called MyCast, and I'm going to tell you, I'll show you right there. Look at that. That baby is coming, huh? Look at that sucker. I've never seen so much color on my iPhone before, and it's on the way. Virginia's going to get absolutely hammered with this. But having been through this many times before, you just sit back and watch it and enjoy it and get a movie and have a cocktail and don't worry about anything. Next thing you know, the plows are out and everything's clear. All right, so there's a dust-up in a big, big way. And I don't know what has turned this in Iowa, but let's just operate on the premise today that the polls are correct. But let's do that. I very seldom, a poll is a poll is a poll, but let's just say this one is correct. What's different? Well, this is the biggest lead Bernie Sanders has ever had in Iowa on Hillary Clinton. The CNN ORC, or whatever poll they call it from CNN, it is 51-43. Is Hillary Clinton admitting that she's in trouble? Well, look at her actions. In 2008, she never did cable interviews. Now she's all over the place. And Bernie is forcing Hillary to react on a number of different fronts. We've seen Hillary react on trade. We've seen her react on Keystone. We've seen her react on Wall Street. We've seen her mount an attack on Bernie on health care, which I don't think is going anywhere. And this poll, of course, was done after the debate. So is this real? Now, I have been told by the Sanders people that some people inside who are somewhat close to what's going on, that they are very confident. People around the campaign are saying that they're very confident. In fact, it's not a matter of convincing anymore. It's a matter of execution. It's a matter of getting their people out. And so how do you judge a ground game? We've talked about this before, but the point is that that's still where we are, but the polls are a little different. So earlier this week, Bernie Sanders on one of the cables says that Hillary Clinton has got the establishment behind her. And then there had to be some definition about what that is. Listen to this first soundbite by Senator Sanders.
We'd love to have the endorsement of every progressive organization in America. We're very proud to have received recently the endorsement of MoveOn.org. We've received the endorsement of Democracy for America. These are grassroots organizations representing millions of workers. What we are doing in this campaign, and it just blows my mind every day because I see it clearly, we're taking on not only Wall Street and the economic establishment, we're taking on the political establishment. So I have friends and supporters in the Human Rights Fund, in Planned Parenthood. But you know what? Hillary Clinton has been around there for a very, very long time, and some of these groups are, in fact, part of the establishment. I concede. I'm not going to get establishment support. I'm not going to get the support of the governors and the senators, with few exceptions, or many of the major organizations. But the reason that we are doing so well, why we're ahead now, I believe, in New Hampshire, why we're closing the gap in Iowa, why we are gaining in Nevada and South Carolina, and why we're doing better and better all over the country is not from the establishment, it is from the grassroots of America.
All right, Hillary Clinton with Wolf Blitzer responds to this.
Well, I have to say I didn't understand that at all. Planned Parenthood does so much on the front lines to provide women and men health care, often low-income people who don't have any alternative. And of course, we know that Planned Parenthood has been under attack constantly from the Republicans, both in Congress and in many states. And the Human Rights Campaign has been in the forefront of making sure that LGBT Americans are not discriminated against. They help to lead the battle for marriage equality. I really don't understand what he means by that. These are two of the really great human rights progressive organizations in our country. I've worked with both of them a long time. I've worked to get results for the people that they represent and serve, and I'm proud to have endorsements from both of them.
Okay, so Bernie, what do you mean by the establishment? Answering what Hillary has to say about that, which pretty much makes sense.
What I said in response to a question about endorsements, as I think what I meant to say anyhow, is that sometimes the grassroots are asking, how does it happen if somebody has a 100% voting record in support of your issue and doesn't get endorsed? And that sometimes the leadership of an organization may look at the world a little bit different than the grassroots. But in terms of those organizations, I know we're a week out in an election and the Clinton people will try to spin these things. I am a fierce supporter of Planned Parenthood, NARAL, and gay rights in this country.
And they're not part of the establishment?
No, they are. They are standing up and fighting the important fights that have to be fought. Okay?
Well, John Nichols, Washington correspondent of The Nation, we're going to let you break this down and break down this poll most recently in Iowa that has Bernie having his biggest lead at 51-43. John, good to have you with us. Washington correspondent of The Nation magazine.
It's great to be with you, Ed. And I do hope that you can lead Washington through the snow.
Hey, I got my hat on. I got my bomber hat on. I'm ready for action. I'm ready to go. You ought to see the looks I get when I walk around Washington with this thing on. But anyway,
we Midwesterners relish the idea of a 2-foot snow. But it's a different cultures, different places. So let's talk politics, and let's imagine. Let's remember that the New Hampshire primary and the Iowa caucuses could well have to deal with snow. So weather is a part of all this, but so is this debate about who is the establishment. And I have to say it, if we step back from this a little bit, it's kind of a wonderful thing, right?
There's no doubt. We've had a discussion on issues we never forecasted was going to take place.
Right, and if everybody is saying, Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders saying, well, don't call me the establishment, right? I think that in a quirky way, this slowly gets us toward a focus on what the real establishment is.
Yeah, well,
and it is a Planned Parenthood or human rights campaign.
Yeah,
it's big corporations. I mean, we know that, and the political class that extends from those corporations. And I think Bernie clarified that. I think Hillary's clarified that. They had a little dust up for a couple days, but at the end of the day, I think most people get this. And I don't think...
I think they do, too, but I think that, there have been some unions out there that have endorsed Hillary where their rank and file doesn't. I think that's what Bernie's talking about, that there are establishment leadership folks out there that may, step to one candidate or another that have been around for a long time, that fit the definition of establishment, but... I guess at the end of the day, it looks like the media is trying to get a dust-up between the two about who has endorsements, but I'm going to tell you what, if Bernie Sanders is the nominee, I can guarantee you where Planned Parenthood's going to go. I can tell you where NARAL's going to go. So it's a non-issue in that regard.
Well, and in fact, here's one of the dynamics of this campaign. Groups have tried, from a lot of different perspectives, to get these candidates to talk more about their issues. And my suspicion is that the impact of this dust-up of the last few days will be that Bernie Sanders will probably talk some more, and he already has. Don't think that he hasn't, but he will talk some more about issues of reproductive rights and gay rights, and that's great. Building out that coalition, talking more, that's fine. The only problem I have with this, the one thing I was a little bit unsettled by was the suggestion in one of the interviews that because Bernie Sanders had served in Congress for 25 years, and
he's establishment too.
Yeah, and I think I have a discomfort with that. And let me say that there are people who really are a part of the establishment in Congress, who really are a part of D.C., and a part of everything that I think frustrates us. But there are people on the right and the left who sit in Congress and challenge a corrupt middle, right, and challenge all the corporate influence and everything. And to call somebody, and I'm really very serious about this, to call somebody on the right, like Walter Jones out of the Carolinas, who often breaks with his party, and I disagree with Walter Jones on a host of issues, but he's not part of the establishment. They pushed him off committees.
Yeah.
Boehner pushed him off committees. And to call Bernie Sanders a part of the establishment, he has so frequently broken with, just about everybody in Congress to stand up on issues. There are people in Congress who are mavericks, who stand up and have for years boldly challenged the way things work in Washington. And I'm just uncomfortable with the idea of saying nobody who gets in there can be good.
All right, let me break down these numbers for you. Right now, Sanders receiving 51% of the vote in Iowa versus Clinton's 43%. Clinton led by 18 points in December. But among Iowans who participated 8 years ago in the 2008 caucuses, the survey found that Clinton leads Sanders 55-38. Well, it's very clear. Bernie has tapped into a younger demographic that is engaged, that is willing to go along with his political revolution of going after Wall Street, making college affordable and free, getting people to pay their fair share. I was at dinner last night, and someone said, "What is fair share?" How do you define it? I said, it's very simple to define it. It's the common sense of people who see it so imbalanced, they don't really need a definition. They just know what it is. And when you have corporations that are making billions of dollars and they're parking their money offshore, you don't need a definition of fair share. They just simply know that's not right. And this is what Bernie's tapped into and ignited a younger demographic. Question is, John, is that younger demographic going to do the process of a caucus on February 1st in Iowa? That's the big question, isn't it?
It's a huge question, and it's a legitimate question. And in fairness to Hillary Clinton, she has worked very hard. I saw, I went to the Jefferson Jackson Day dinner out there. And when that dinner got done, I was over talking to a bunch of people. About an hour after the dinner was done, a friend of mine said, "Hey, you got to come over and look what's happening on the other side of the hall." So I walked over this huge hall. There was Hillary Clinton, still working that rope line an hour later, taking pictures with everybody. Now, this is a part of Iowa.
Yeah.
Because the people who are the Democratic core activists, the ones who always go to the caucuses, they expect something of a personal relationship with the person they're backing.
Yeah.
Now, what Sanders is trying to do is to literally bring a whole bunch of new people in. Now, I will tell you, those folks that come will be welcomed. Iowans are nice folks. But the bottom line is the ones we know will be there. We know that those people who took those pictures on that rope line with Hillary Clinton, they're going to be there.
Yeah.
Will these young people come? And it's not just young. I want to emphasize, too, Ed, one other element is you're really talking about people who maybe aren't that young but have just never really had a lot of faith in this political process.
Sure. Bernie gives them a new level of faith and trust in all of this. Yep.
And so this becomes the great challenge, because an Iowa caucus is it's a wild ride. You get there early, probably 6:30. So they have coffee, and they drink coffee at 6:30 because they know they're going to be there for a long time.
What time does this normally end up, John? I mean, is this into the 10, 11 o'clock Central Time at night before they get decisions on this? I can't remember the history of this in the past.
Yeah, you're not going to have results. Here's what happens. The caucuses usually go, they can vary, but they can go for a couple hours, right? So you could go to 9, 10 o'clock. It doesn't always go that way. It just depends. They also, weirdly enough, in addition to doing, the presidential stuff, they're doing county party stuff, who's going to be on this committee and thing. Yeah. So when everybody finally gets out and they call these results in, now they're doing it digitally, you're going to start to get stuff pretty quickly. Here's the complexity of it, though, Ed. If it's at all close, you can't make a call too easily, because there'll be what are called entry polls. Somebody's going to be out there, I expect, doing the opposite of an exit poll. An exit poll, you ask people when they leave. Now, that's not going to be useful in this context. So the polling firms, they do entry polls. They ask people going in, who are you for? The problem is that an entry poll, which will be released relatively early, won't give you a clear picture because people will shuffle around in the caucus. They can move from one side to another. Mm-hmm. And the O'Malley people might join up with Sanders or with Clinton. And so what I think we're really talking, if it's close, you could easily be, into midnight or 1 a.m. I mean, it takes time to get all these numbers. I'm not saying it will be that way. Could go quick, especially if somebody's a clear winner. But this is a point I always tell people, take a deep breath, step back for a moment, and remember the story of Rick Santorum.
Yeah.
Rick Santorum was rated the loser in Iowa, right? He didn't make it, didn't quite win. And then a few days later, what happened? We got everything together. We finally looked at the numbers. Turns out Santorum won. Interesting.
And, of course, we've seen Huckabee win in Iowa, too, and neither of them went further than that. So who knows? It's a temperature taker is what it is in the early political season. John Nichols, always a pleasure. We'll see you Monday night on the News with Ed Schultz on RT. Looking forward to it.
I look forward to being with you, my friend.
All right. John Nichols, Washington correspondent of The Nation magazine. When we come back, more on Michigan. This story will not go away for a long time. Lonnie Scott, he's the executive director of Progress Michigan, and a breakdown of how seriously Governor Snyder is spinning this now. Stay with us. We're right back on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Hey, folks, you've heard me talk about BioGreen Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, wegoted.com, or go to biogreenclean.com. www.biogreenclean and order today. It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns. It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor. They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up, and the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
Good to have you back with us here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary, bracing for the big storm this weekend here in Washington, D.C. Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team bring you this production daily. We start the news with Ed Schultz on Monday. Coming up from the RT studios here in Washington, D.C. every night, Monday through Friday at 8 o'clock. You can get RT on Dish and on Direct. And they've got a huge presence on YouTube. You know, in the media, you can always find someone that's going to give you a little bit of cover. Or you can find someone who is politically aligned with you that's going to let you stake your claim on exactly what happened. So here is Governor Rick Snyder explaining on Cut 6 on the big list today about, how in the world could this have ever happened in Flint, Michigan? Doggone it, there's lead in the water. Well, I guess this is what it is.
Yeah, in terms of the change itself, it was a broader effort in terms of saying they wanted to change their water system to a new water authority, and it was actually voted for by the city council, and it was ratified by the emergency manager. It was
hold on. Ho. It was decided by the city emergency manager that Snyder appointed, and then the city council went along with it so they wouldn't be targeted in the next election. Okay, so we got that straight? Let's hear that garbage one more time.
Yeah, in terms of the change itself, it was a broader effort in terms of saying they wanted to change their water system to a new water authority, and it was actually voted for by the city council, and it was ratified by the emergency manager. It was a 7-1 vote of the city council to leave the Detroit water system. The emergency manager ratified ratified it after they made that vote.
And that was a decision to save money, I think, right, Governor?
Well, again, it would also reduce their cost in some ways, but I believe they wanted their independence, and it was a countywide decision.
No. God, listen to this guy. They wanted their independence. They want their independence. They were going to be marching down the streets of Flint. We no longer get our water from Detroit. We're independent, and we're going to prove it, so we're going to drink this lead water out of the Flint River. It is amazing to me that this guy goes virtually unchallenged in some corners of the media trying to explain how they screwed up. This is all an effort to privatize and make money, and it was to make money. Lonnie Scott, Executive Director of Progress Michigan, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Break it down for us. I mean, is Snyder telling the truth?
Well, he's telling his version of the truth, Ed. The simple fact of the matter here is that the emergency manager, based on the law that the Republicans passed once Snyder was first elected, comes in with the total authority and takes away all democracy from the city elected officials and the city mayor. So anything that emergency manager wanted to do, essentially, they had the authority to do that. And while city council may have wanted to switch away from the Detroit water system, it was the emergency manager who decided that they weren't going to continue using Detroit in the interim, that they were going to switch to the Flint River. And that's what happened. The emails that the governor released 2 days ago actually show that the final decision was ultimately made by then Treasurer Andy Dillon, who
There's no question.
Snyder.
And now this email dump is what I'm calling it, has got a lot of redacted material in it. And now you've got the governor of Michigan who is going to be testifying in front of Congress. The House Oversight Committee hearing is going to take place on February 3rd. According to the Detroit Free Press, spokesperson for U.S. Representative Brenda Lawrence, who filed a request for the hearing, says witnesses are requested to attend but might not show. So a spokesperson for Snyder tells Newsweek that the office hasn't received information from the committee regarding a possible hearing. The Attorney General in Michigan is also investigating what happened here. What's the end game here as you see it from your perspective, being the Executive Director of Progress Michigan?
Well, it's really hard to tell. I mean, and we should talk about the Attorney General launching an investigation.
Go ahead.
He said up until, really until national media was beating down Michigan's door about this issue, he had told folks here that he wasn't interested in investigating, and that so I think it's interesting the timing where he decided that it was prudent for him to actually do an investigation. So
I'm told he's a big conservative, but he doesn't like Snyder. Is that right?
Yeah, they're not real friendly. That's for sure.
And he's up for election. He wants to run again. So this could be political meat for him on Snyder.
It could be. The interesting thing there is that it's widely expected that his biggest competitor in the gubernatorial race would be now Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley. And so if Governor Snyder resigns or is removed from office, that would mean that Calley would be the acting governor, and our Attorney General Bill Schuette would be running against then a sitting governor. So there's a lot of political implications there, and so I'm not sure how that plays out. But you asked about the end game. It's really hard to tell. I mean, you have Snyder, who at some points, seems very emotional and genuine about feeling bad, but then still is not being transparent or accountable to the people of Flint. I mean, we just released yesterday emails that we had found, and that shows that the emails that the governor did release, his email dump, actually doesn't tell the whole story, which we expected widely when he announced that he would be releasing those. So I don't think we really know what's going on until Governor Snyder drops his executive exemption and releases all the emails, including those of his chief of staff and his other executive level staff, so that we know and get a clear picture of what was actually happening and being talked about in the governor's office.
Now, the governor's chief of staff recently resigned, although I'm told that his retirement was imminent because he's an old dude. But he did send an email, it was revealed in this email dump, back in September to the governor saying, you know what, this state health officials are very concerned about the water quality in Flint. This could turn out to be a political football. which leads me to believe that they were more concerned about political ramifications than they were about the state health officials saying, hey, the people in Flint are consuming contaminated water that is poisonous.
Yeah,
lead poison. Lead. I mean, how do you get around that?
Well, I think that's right. I think, the governor came in and has always said that he wanted to run Michigan like a business. And the fact of the matter is that when you run things like a business and the bottom line is all that you look at, you miss out on the people. And the people here are important. These are not numbers on a spreadsheet, Ed. These are real people. These are children who for decades, for their entire life, will be affected by this. Generations coming from Flint that are going to be affected by this. And simply put, the state let them down. The officials that should have protected them. My belief is that government's core purpose is to keep their people safe. And, they failed. But I think that it's important to point out that, even looking just at the switch of the water misses a lot of the story, because Flint really could be any poor city in America. Republican austerity policies have contributed to all of this. I mean, it's decades of neglecting.
This is Republican policy. That's what this is. The Democrats didn't do this. We got to be very clear about this. No progressive signed off on lousy water going into Flint, and taking water out of the Flint River. Look, this cuts to the Environmental Protection Agency. Republicans want to get rid of that. There's some who have campaigned that they'd get rid of the EPA because it would hurt business. I mean, there's just no end to what these people want to do. All right, I appreciate your time, Lonnie Scott. We'll talk again. The end game. Somebody's got to come up with $1 billion to fix this. The president's engaged in it now. It's on the campaign trail. Hillary Clinton and, of course, Bernie Sanders have talked about this. But Flint can do the country a favor by going through this in some strange way that we know not what to do in the future with municipalities. But it all stems from these right-wing governors who were elected in 2010 that have tried to out-business one another. They wanted to attack unions. They wanted to attack public education. They wanted to take over utilities and privatize everything. I'm talking about Scott in Florida, Christie in New Jersey, Kasich in Ohio went after the unions. You got Walker in Wisconsin. You got Corbett in Pennsylvania. And you got this loser, Snyder, in Michigan. That's what this is all about. They came in on the Tea Party wave that they could run a more efficient and better government, and now look what we have.
Absolutely. And it's the entire wave. We've got to get rid of all of them from the top down. I mean, it's the same thing in the state legislature. The voters of Michigan voted to overturn the emergency management law, and 5 weeks later, the legislature passed almost an exact same law, only they put an appropriation in it so that the Michigan voters couldn't repeal it again.
Yeah, that's just how rotten they are. That's how they are. Great to have you with us, Lonnie. We'll do it again. Appreciate your time. This is Ed Schultz, News and Commentary, Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, Bio Green Clean, and the iSave team bring you this production. We are right back with more after this.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania, to the auto factories of Michigan, to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, President of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
In the news with Ed Schultz starts Monday, the 25th, live from Washington, D.C., from RT America. 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It's a 30-minute news package. You won't want to miss it. It will be a wrap-up of the day's news. It's going to be an excellent production. I think it'll be a part of your day, and I would appreciate it if you'd like us on Facebook at We Got Ed. Have a great weekend. If you're in the neighborhood, put on your bomber hat and get ready, because that big storm's coming. We'll see you Monday here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Have a good one.